If you take everything out of your life, then what's left? If you get rid of all your friends, if you stop listening to all music through necessity, then what comes out of the void, what comes out of the silence?
I think now it's called ME, or like chronic fatigue syndrome. So for 3 years he was just at home and couldn't really, he was just too fatigued to go out.
Pretty much from when he was 21, he just like, that was game over for him, like no more university and stuff, and I think he had to go back. He was really, really ill and he went back to stay with his parents.
We had a piano in the house, and every bit of energy that I had, I would go straight to the piano, you know, after breakfast and just like play for a while, and then go and rest, and then play for a while. And I remember quite distinctly the first song I wrote. It was very simple arpeggios on the piano, and then I just started singing some words. And I thought, well, that's it. You know, this is it. I've written a song, and I thought that's something that I could do. So it became very valuable to me. It was definitely my reason to exist for a number of years.
She liked to play her love, she liked to sing her love, but it hurts her, so she gave it up for medicinal drugs. Now she's really happy, yeah, she's really happy.
I didn't actually move to Glasgow till I was in my 20s. I was unemployed, just doing music for a long time and couldn't really afford it. And it was when I started doing a course called Beatbox for unemployed musicians in Glasgow. You got an extra £10 a week, and that was enough to be able to rent a place. And that was where I met Stuart. He was on the course at the same time.
Beatbox was like a course that they put people on when they were either unemployed or, in my case, too sick to work. And they kind of gathered up all the waifs and strays from the town, and they said, okay, you're on a music course now.
But really we would just turn up, and there wasn't really a course provided for us. We were just sitting around, sort of like a refugee camp for unemployed musicians.
At first I thought it was terrible. I thought the type of music that they were playing was terrible. But after a while I realised this was the only game in town, that I should use it.
Maybe once a month your band were allowed to go in and record in the studio, and you could use other musicians for on the course.
And Stuart wasn't a bass player, but he said he would learn, you know, he said my songs were so simple that he would play bass.
His style was quite well developed. I think I told him on that first day that it sounded a bit like Blur, which I think probably offended him.
London is let me down, I'm kinda bored with this town, but the only thing keeping me here till the spring is the promise of joy in a certain person.
When we started out playing at first, he just didn't have the energy to do more than 2 or 3 songs at a time, and it was quite a slow process of him getting his strength back.
You know, I'd made a few demos with Stuart and they were fine, they did a certain thing, but I think maybe when I wrote Dog on Wheels, I thought, well, you know, this has got momentum or something. It just seemed to come out very easily, and it sort of flowed, and it felt like it could do with a group around it.
When I was a boy, I was confounded by you. Now I'm still a boy, I am indebted to you. Every song I ever wrote was written for you, written for you.
I tried to corral people into playing music with me, and it wasn't happening. You know, they didn't have my taste, they didn't, you know, for whatever reasons, they didn't hang around.
For quite a long time it was just me and Stuart, and we tried out a couple of drummers. And I think at that time I was sharing a flat with, I think there was about 5 or 6 of us there, and Richard was sharing the flat.
I moved into this flat with Stuart David, but Stuart Murdoch would pop up every so often, and they would hang out and they would practice their music. And I was kind of, you know, I'd spoke to Stuart David, said, I used to play a bit, I'm not bothered. So I'd end up playing bongos just because somebody else wasn't there, and that's how I just got in and kept going.
It's a bit like Stuart. Stuart didn't play bass guitar, and Richard didn't have any drums, and I didn't really know how good he was, but, you know, he seemed interested, so that was nice.
I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing at all, and in some ways I still don't. In a lot of ways I still don't.
Lisa knows a girl who's been abused. He changed her philosophy and he too. She's always looking for a fight. She keeps the neighbours up all night.
We tried out at the Holt Bar, which was quite well known in Glasgow as an open mic spot first. It was a band called the Moondials. It was their equipment that we used. They would kind of compare it, and Stevie was the guitarist in the Moondials. He was quite a well-known face at the Holt.
I could see what Stevie had, you know. He was this talented guy, he could handle a crowd, seems like he could play anything.
We said, you want to join a band? And I went, no. And it wasn't because I didn't think he was fantastic, but it was more just, I just left the band.
So I convinced Stevie to come down and at least rehearse the songs like a few times down at Beatbox.
He kept playing with us and saying to Stuart, I'll play with you, but I'm not going to be in your band, and that went on for quite a long time.
Over the course of the next sort of months, I would write him these letters with quite persuasive sort of arguments. I was, you know, saying, well, you know, how about you just help me out with this project? How about we just do this? And, you know, you don't have to be part of the band. It isn't a band, it's a project, you know.
And they just wrote me this letter, you know, it's very old-fashioned. I've still got it, actually, but he's just saying, well, help me make this record. And I think I phoned him up. I didn't write back. I think I just phoned him up and went, okay.
I go to her when I'm feeling slack. The girl's using me as a punching bag.
You'd have the four basic guys, myself, Stevie, Richard and Stuart. And then I wanted the instruments I thought would fill in.
His vision was to have the really interlocked intrinsic arrangements with violin and cello, you know. And it was very inspired by the Left Bank. Probably more songs like Pretty Ballerina. And that song especially, if you listen to that song, it's the kind of strings and the cello and the violins are intrinsic to the arrangement as the guitar, the bass, or the keyboards, you know.
Was I surprised, yeah? Was I surprised? Well, not at all.
I'd heard about Isobel from a couple of guys that I was messing around with music-wise before. And they were saying, you know, there's this girl, you should meet this girl. And she plays the cello and she records little songs in her room. But it wasn't till 6 months later, I'd kind of, you know, forgot about her. And I happened to meet her in the queue for the bathroom at a party, a New Year's party.
I was so drunk. I remember like clutching onto like cabinets, and I was in the queue, the line for the bathroom, and that's how I met Stuart. And he was like, "What's your name?" And I was just, whoa, drunk mess, you know.
I kind of twigged that this was the girl that they had been talking about, you know. There wasn't so many girls like that in the town, you know. She had this long blonde hair and the dresses, and seemed very sweet at the time. You know, but something was in the air, you know, and it was nice. It didn't do us any harm.
But he was just like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I was like, "Isobel." And he was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, "Does anybody call you Belle?" And I said, "Yes," like my mum, like all the time.
I'd actually been messing with it. I'd been writing a short story about two characters called Belle and Sebastian. And I thought it would be fun to call them that name. That was a name from my childhood, from an old television program. But I liked the idea that it was like this hipster couple in Glasgow that were making this music, like a fictional couple.
Everyone thought it was a shame, but Belle and the boy Sebastian.
It was New Year's Day, and I went round to his house for dinner. He just said to me, like, I met this girl last night. And he'd already decided the name of the band was Belle and Sebastian. He said, it's really freaky. Her name's Belle. This is so weird, you know. I think he took it as some kind of sign.
Oh, Sebastian wrote his story that he would never be young again, but you will.
So like Stuart and I had played at the university a few times, and then he was like, oh, I'm playing at this party, do you want to come? And it was in Stuart David's old flat. So that was when I first met them. And I think I met Chris at that party. He showed up, but he didn't play that night. He showed up and he was really stoned.
I'd maybe been doing a little bit of music with kind of flatmates and stuff, and when there was talk of Stuart looking for people to play on his songs, he came up to the flat and played a couple of things, and one of which I remember being Mary Jo that ended up on Tiger Milk, and I really liked that one. But also when he played it, I thought, oh yeah, that's kind of quite simple. I probably could actually play something on that would be okay.
Mary Jo, back with yourself, the company. Keep telling yourself you're young, and it'll happen soon.
I was happy for anybody to do anything. I was just glad people were interested.
It's someone else's turn to go through hell, and you can see them come from 50 yards, yeah, you can tell.
I always get this kind of feeling. It was a bit like, you ever seen that movie, The Magnificent Seven? You know, like Yul Brynner's got a job to do, then he's like, you know, he goes around, he gets Steve McQueen, then he goes and gets James Colburn, then he goes and gets Robert Vaughn. Steve McQueen's going,
The men you let fall down. Monday morning, wake up knowing that you gotta go to school. Tell your mum what to expect, she said it's right out of the blue.
Richard was doing a course. There's lots of these courses. He was doing a course at college called Stowe College, and he was on the music business course, which makes me chuckle to think of Richard doing music business.
The way they read it in the advert, it seemed quite appealing, and then you get there and you realise that you don't really want to do this, do you? You thought it was something else, didn't you?
You say you wanna be remembered for your art.
What happened in the music business course is every year they take a demo tape from an unsigned band and they try to make a record, and then they try to promote the record. So they use you as a guinea pig for the students.
Dog on Wheels was already a completed thing from a previous project from the unemployment thing. We had this tape, so we handed the tape in to the college course, to the label straight away. They would like, whoa, stop the bus, this is unbelievable. This is what we're going to use.
They decided that this was the tape, that they wanted to make this into a record. And that was obviously quite a pivotal moment.
Do something pretty while you can. Don't fall asleep. Skating a pirouette on ice is cool.
I think Tiger Milk, we had only 3 days for the actual recording and 2 for the mixing.
5 days is not a long time to make a record. So I remember doing quite a lot of rehearsing and missing a lot of college time because of that, which was no big deal really.
We knew we had a schedule. We had to do at least 3 backing tracks every day, and with live vocals. Thankfully we had a great engineer, a guy called Gregor Reed, who came with the studio. It was a nice studio that they put us up in, you know. It was called Sava, just the other side of Kelvin Grove Park.
I played on the first 2 Belle and Sebastian records as a session musician. And it was a big thing when it was the sort of biggest studio I'd been in at the time, and I think probably for everyone else as well, you know, just everyone's kind of like charged up by the fact they're in this big place.
So, you know, we didn't hang around. We set up pretty quickly. And when we were all ready to go, there was 5 or 6 people playing. And I had a distinct notion that, you know, we're just about to do the first track on our first LP. And it's like a whole new journey, you know.
I was surprised. I was happy for a day in 1975. I was puzzled by a dream that stayed with me all day in 1995. My brother had confessed he was gay, it took the heat off me for a while.
I just hadn't heard anything quite like it. It just seemed miles beyond anybody else was doing on the scene, you know. It was like Dylan or Paul Simon. I actually thought it was in that level. I was like, really, I was staggered.
Got married in a rush to save a kid from being deported. Now she's in love. Oh, I was so touched. I was moved to kick the crutches from my crippled friend.
Because Stuart had had ME for 3 or 4 years leading up to that point, it seemed to be quite an important song for him because it seemed to, I think, encapsulate that whole experience for him. And gradually I think he started being able to go out on the bus, and that got him out of the house, which became quite an influential thing in Belle and Sebastian for him, and a lot of his songs became about what he saw when he was out on the buses.
Oh, and now I'm feeling dangerous, riding on city buses for a hobbyist time.
I always wanted to write about just normal people doing normal things because I was not normal. I was out of the game. So it was very attractive to me what normal people were doing. I would watch the people working. I'd watch the people coming in and out. I'd wonder what, you know, where they'd come from, what they were going to, whether parts of families, relationships, if they're working, which was all what I didn't have. And I would write about them.
Give myself to sin and there and back again. Oh yeah.
It isn't very often in life where you're involved with something which just, it's not above your expectations. It's like a million times more than your expectations, you know. I remember like Stuart brought around a white label to my flat and like I put it on and it started. And like, was this like Tiger Milk, when the band kicked in, I turned to him and I went, "We're going to be rich." And he went, because he knew I was right.
Me on the cheek and then go off to school. You're just a baby girl. So kiss me on the cheek before you know what's cool.
By the time of the launch party, the Stowe College kids had done their job and there was representation from all the big labels.
It was kind of overwhelming at the time because just all of a sudden it was like the whole music business descended on us, really.
We knew that we could take a large advance from somebody, but we were wise enough to know that wasn't the way to go. I had no interest in major labels. I wanted to control the whole thing. I knew as soon as you take money from people, they start telling you what to do. And I knew with this fragile bunch that I had that wasn't going to work.
The notion of going with a big label was always never gonna happen. And Jeepster were the first label to show an interest and be quite genuine about it and quite upfront and honest.
It did come with a lot of conditions if we were to sign this band, and it was all on the band's terms, you know, and one of them was that, well, first of all, we're not going to release singles from albums, you know, that And that was pretty much unheard of, and that was obviously a day, you know, I think Led Zeppelin, the Beatles or whatever did it years before, but, you know, most record companies just couldn't swallow that one for a start. Then it was, we're not going to do any promotion, you know, which is sort of, oh, okay, you know, we're not going to do any press. In fact, we're not even actually going to appear in our press photographs. I'm like, well, how does that one work then, you know?
The main message that they were trying to get across to us at the time was that we don't want all this attention, we want to do things our way, we're not interested in money, we're not interested in fame, we don't want this to become our job. And if you've got a problem with any of these things, then give up now.
But when they did actually sign, I phoned up Stuart and said, oh, what are you excited about tomorrow? And he was like, well, you know, what's happening tomorrow? And I said, we're signing you, aren't we? And he said, oh, no, I did that today. You know, I was like, oh, okay, well, it might have been quite nice to have had a phone call from you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But sort of completely didn't really register the, you know, he just signed a record deal up in Scotland, and we were quite pleased that he'd done that.
There must be a reason for all the looks we gave and all the things we never said before. So what's this gone?
Stuart really knew what he was doing. He was very, very driven. And I remember him using the exact phrase. He said, all we got to do is load the gun, point it in the right direction and fire it, and it'll happen. Yeah, it will happen. And he was right.
I was looking at these recently for song ideas, and I noticed that some of the songs were written in such a short window of time. Like how I've got Seeing Other People and Fox in the Snow on the opposite page, obviously written very close together in February of '96.
Lay on the bed, kissing just for practice. Could we please be objective? Cause the other boys are queuing up behind us. A hand over my mouth.
I did know that this was a strong collection of songs, and I knew maybe with too much forethought that this perhaps was the strongest set of songs that I would write, because, you know, you just know that this stuff from looking at other bands, that groups of songs, they don't come along like that all the time. I was writing so much, but it was probably because I had so much stored up in me emotionally and otherwise from the years and years of nothing.
Almost as soon as Tiger Milk was done, you know, once things were sorted out with Jeepster, we started rehearsing the songs for If You're Feeling Sinister.
Stuart had moved into the church hall by then, and he was really keen to rehearse with the acoustics in there.
I just moved into the church right at the end of the freezing winter of '95, '96, and when all the pipes froze, and I think Richard moved in shortly afterwards, and this was a new experience all around.
I think for me that was kind of the golden period of Belle and Sebastian, was the actual rehearsals of If You're Feeling Sinister in the church hall.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Sarah initially was coming along to the rehearsals for If You're Feeling Sinister.
Well, I think he'd maybe said, would I join his band before I'd heard the tape, and I was just kind of making excuses and going, yeah, I'm in my final year at uni, that's the last thing I need to be doing. And then I heard the tape and I was like, that's pretty good, that's pretty amazing. And it's actually a band I would like to be in.
You're joking.
It's almost like Rubber Soul and Revolver, you know, it's like Sinister and Tiger Milk could more or less be, you know, they were recorded within 3 months of each other. You know, it is more or less kind of the same, just bang bang, two albums straight out.
Tiger Milk was recorded in 3 days, mixed in 2 days. Sinister was recorded in 5 days and mixed in 3 days, so it was like we had a luxury of time on Sinister. One of the philosophies of Belle and Sebastian was just you worked with whoever was around. We were very happy to work with the house engineer Gregor on the first record, and he was terrific. And then it just so happened Gregor wasn't around, he wasn't available for the second record, and Tony was the other main engineer down in the place down at Savas, so we did that record with Tony.
And at that time, you know, you were a house engineer, so they just used whoever was the house guy, and that's how Gregor did Tiger Milk, and that's how I did Sinister. We were the house guys.
Tony had talked to Gregor, and he knew what the deal was, he knew what our setup was in the first record. I think he realised that it wasn't going to be so much different because it was only months apart in the recording process, and it had worked the first time round.
You know, one thing that's definitely that is evident from Sinister is it must have been well rehearsed and well arranged, you know, before they came into the studio, because there's so much going on, and it happened all really quickly. Most of it happened live, you know.
Stuart was a real advocate of trying to get the whole thing down in one go, so it was the most natural it could be, and especially because it's so quick. The record was done so quickly that more often than not, if it was technically possible, he'd rather sing the song live with the band.
At the time, I remember being particularly difficult, you know, because it was like, oh God, you know, you'd end up with 10 takes of the same song, none of which you could edit together. But now, when I think back about it, I just think, what a stroke of genius, you know. It's great, you know. It's why they sound like that, really. Fucking great, yeah. Wish everybody did that.
Make a new coat every day to suit your affairs. Kissing girls in English at the back of the stairs. You're a honey with a following of innocent boys. They never know it because you never show it. You always get your way.
If you were going to listen to this record at all from the first bars, it was, you know, it's just me and my voice and things creep in. So I didn't want anybody to ignore these records. I was completely bold about that. You know, I didn't want to be ignored.
Have you and her been taking pictures of your obsession?
I'm going to put it right up front what this group is about and what we're about. And it's about storytelling, and it's about capturing somebody's attention and keeping it.
In his blue velour and silk, you liberated a boy I never rated.
I mean, I loved the kind of, you know, some of the humour in the lyrics as well, and also just loved the fact that it was a song that referenced athletics. The fact of Alan Wells winning the Olympic 100 metres gold in 1980, it made the song quite nostalgic for me.
You liberated a boy I never rated, and now he's doing business.
When you talk about doing business, I mean, that you hear Brendan Foster commentating, the older English runner commentating on the Olympics, and they talk about doing business. It's like an athletics term for, you know, running well kind of thing. And all those terms are in there. Stuart was always interested in that. He was a runner and liked boxing, and so I think he ran every day for a few years.
You know, I did like running, and I always did, but it had been something that was taken away from me. I ran a marathon just before I started to become unwell, you know, so I look back on that life, and it was it was like a fantasy to me.
Could I write a requiem for you when you're dead? She had the move, she had the speed, it went to her head. She never needed anyone to get around the track, but when she's on her back, she had the knowledge to get her into college.
These songs, they're absolutely about desire, and they're about desiring the subject of the song, but also desiring to be the person who the song is about, to be partaking in their activities, to be part of their life, because again, the whole backdrop is that I'd been unwell for so long that, for instance, an athlete, the star of a track and field, is the kind of person that I would simply be beautiful to me, to be aspire to that kind of athleticism and activity.
Stars of track and field you are. Stars of track and field you are. Stars of track and field are beautiful people.
It was up there with the Staterman and that kind of level. You know. It was original and intriguing and communicated, and it's great.
Stars of track and field are beautiful people.
The ending section really sort of reminds me of the Velvet Underground or something. It just builds and builds and gets more intense, and you know, it was always the Velvet side of the band rather than, say, the Smiths that a lot of people seem to sort of reference the band. That, you know, was particularly for me was, you know, what really attracted me to the band in the first place.
I mean, I guess we were just sort of imagining we were the Velvet Underground, except, you know, Velvet Underground with a trumpet.
Stars of track and field you are. Stars of track and field you are.
It was kind of unlike any other song I'd heard, just the structure of it and the melody.
Imagining the embodiment of an athlete within somebody who was a right-minded thinker, and you know, it's fantasy, yeah.
Like Dylan in the movies, that seems to be a favourite one. I just really always loved the song. It just seemed like a sort of perfect pop song. And I always played that bass line at sound checks, and I still play it when I'm practicing the bass. But it was actually Stuart that wrote the bass line for it, and he just kind of hummed it to me.
I didn't build many songs around riffs at all. My songs are always based on you know, just simply a melody line, and then I'll underpin the melody usually. But I remember thinking, if you do get a riff, if you do get something else that goes along with you get a bit more movement, and which was fun with that song.
This is kissing man like a long walk home when the music stops. Take a tip from me, took it to the park when you're on your own. It's a long walk home. Well, if they follow you, don't look back like Dylan in the movies on your own. If they follow you, it's not your money that they're after, boy, it's you.
But it was again quite autobiographical, just about Stuart had those experiences walking through the park at night. It just was one of those ones that made the West End seem like a more kind of magical place.
It just seemed to kind of encapsulate quite a lot of the folklore of this part of town. You know, Kelvin Grove Park's really, really beautiful, and it's like it's a total thoroughfare during the day, but like, you know, I don't think it's the best idea to go in at night.
There was a lot of like goings on in the park. I think there was a couple of times that like Stevie had been chased. I know other people in Glasgow that had been maybe in the park during the day, and like guys would like approach them and say, you know, do you want to fool around?
If they follow you, it's not your money that they're after, boy, it's you.
Dylan, you know, again, it covers of the way I was feeling emotionally about certain people and blah, blah, blah. I'd gone up to the art school, which was the local club, and the art school's great, you know, but for some reason I always found it very inspiring leaving places. I always like to leave places. I didn't like to hang around for too long, because then I could get in my own headspace and think about music. Maybe that night I used to go there myself, and maybe I just felt jealous of the music that I would hear and frustrated that we couldn't produce music like that. And I felt challenged constantly by every song that I heard. And so I'd leave the place, you'd be in sudden quiet, and I was walking home, and then I wrote this song about, you know, just be myself and write music.
You could put Dylan in the movies in any era, you know, for the past 50 years, and it would be a classic song, you know, in any of those eras, you know, and I think that's what's good about a lot of Stuart's early songs, is that, I mean, timeless is a terribly overused word, but they're of a time, but they could be of any time.
I mean, Dylan in the movies was, you know, again, I was just like, how does this guy do it? You know, it's, and where do these songs come from?
We still play that, you know, every other night. It's fun, good song to play.
It's one of the big moments in the record for sure, so it's just where you place it and how you place it. And like any good record should, you know, it should follow a path that makes sense from start to finish.
Fox in the snow, where do you go to find something you could eat? 'Cause the word out on the street is you are starving. Don't let yourself go hungry now. Don't let yourself grow cold. Fox in the snow.
I just thought those lyrics were just perfect, because they weren't particularly about anything, but they just created this whole world, really. I think without having the strong narrative thread that the other songs have got, in a way it was more evocative because of that.
It's almost like haiku-like or something, even though it's, you know, not following that syllable scheme, but it's that, you know, a couple of lines that paint a picture rather than a whole load of verses that sort of tell you everything about somebody's life.
Boy on the bike, what are you like as you cycle round the town? You're going up, you're going down, you're going nowhere. It's not as if they're paying you, it's not as if it's fun, at least not anymore. When your legs are black and blue, it's time to take a break. When your legs are black and blue, it's time to take a holiday.
The characters in it are definitely less concrete than a lot of the other characters in the song. I mean, obviously, the song's addressed to an animal for a start. Yeah, it's much more impressionistic than a lot of the songs.
Fox in the snow, when your legs looking black and blue, fox in the snow, it's not as if they're paying you. Fox in the
You pinpoint something in this animal's plight, or just something that you see, and then it just got me thinking, you know, you recognize it in this person that you see. It's this girl, it's that person, it's me, it's, you know, that's songwriting, and it's haphazard, but that's the beauty of it. You're not writing a novel. It can come out very quickly. You can store up all these feelings for years and years, and in a 5-minute period, that song will be on the paper. Get Me Away From Here, I'm Dying might have been started the same day I wrote Dylan. They had a similar feel in terms of what that feeling of like wanting to walk away from a place that this wasn't for me. I just want to do my own thing. I don't care about anybody here.
Oh, get me away from here, I'm dying. Play me a song to set me free. Nobody writes them like they used to, so it may as well be me.
It's almost like a kind of manifesto for the band in song form, isn't it? And that's why it kind of connects with the fans. I mean, it's like nobody writes them like they used to, so it may as well be me, right?
Probably the song musically that I was most impressed by that Stuart had written. Most people that I knew when they were writing songs, and myself in particular, when I'm writing, I can't write anything about what's happening at the present time. It has to be something from the past that you've sort of processed and filtered. But Stuart had this ability to just write about what was happening that day at that time and somehow make it timeless as well.
Oh, I'll settle down with some old story about a boy who's just like me. Thought there was love in everything and everyone, you're so naive.
I know that Stuart used to say like, oh yeah, it's not, none of them are about me, nothing, but they're so autobiographical. I think it's all about stuff that's going on and like the band and characters.
It's definitely started to affect the way I was writing and helping. You know, I was writing about the band, I was writing about our situation. It was new for me, and so absolutely I wrote it about the band and about our future prospects and about this disparate bunch that had come together. You know?
I'd gone up in the early days and just gone, oh, you know, you're fantastic, you could be successful, you know, and really big, or just all those things which didn't really wash well with them. And I think that he told me that that was a reference to me at some point in there. But, you know, I was kind of honoured that, you know, I'd made it somewhere in there.
Think of it this way, you could either be successful or be us. With our winning smiles and nods, with our catchy tunes or words. Now we're photogenic, you know, we don't stand a chance.
Even though it says like we don't stand a chance and all that, I think it's slightly knowing. It's like we're going you know, it's maybe a like song of doubt or something, but he always knew he was going somewhere.
Get me away, I'm dying. 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 Oh, I'm dying. Oh, I'm dying.
It was a school that wasn't far from where Stuart and I lived, and I have vague memories of Stuart talking about going to record it and going, be careful. Do you know what I mean? Don't be hanging about a playground with a microphone and stuff. It's not a great look, I'll be honest with you, it's not a great look. You might get reactions from that one.
Chris and I just went, well, where's the nearest school we'll go up to? We'll stand at the school gates and we'll record the thing. And I think it just worked. Suggested a kind of innocence.
For me, it has more just a universal feeling of that's what school sounds like, but that's because I went to school in that same environment.
It's a fine piece of Geddes. That was like that was one of his, you know, early great parts. Digga digga ding ding ding.
The little kind of melodic motif at the start. I think I might have come up with that. I think it was in an advert for Renault cars that was kind of on the telly a lot at the time. So it was kind of a lift.
Anthony walked to his death because he thought he'd never feel this way again. If he goes back to the house, then things will go from bad to worse. What could he do?
They're mini films. Everyone's a mini movie. Once you get into the lyrics, Jesus, you know, he can work a character and work a story.
Hillary went to her death because she couldn't think of anything to say. Everybody thought that she was boring, so they never listened anyway.
It was so dark, you know, so dark. Clearly about suicides and what people are doing just before they end it all, kind of thing.
Hillary went to the Catholic Church because she wanted information. The vicar or whatever took her to one side and gave her confirmation. St. Teresa's calling her, the church up on the hill is looking lovely.
It just seemed to encapsulate that whole world he was surrounded by, and his own Christianity was developing more at that point from being in the church hall, and he was sort of forming a sort of world view, and that song just seemed to sort of sum the whole thing up, I think.
But if you are feeling sinister, go up and see a minister. He'll try in vain to take away the pain of being a hopeless unbeliever. La, la, la.
I think he kind of worried about it at the time. I think he kind of worried about what the minister was going to say about, you know, if you're feeling sinister and all that kind of thing, you know.
It was kind of funny because Stuart and I living in the church hall, of course the minister would be around quite a lot and they would hold meetings there, and you know, and Stuart was part and parcel of that because he was in a way working for them and he was getting that accommodation, and we would help to run the church hall.
He asked me to live in the church hall and looked after it, and so he liked the group being around. When we started rehearsing, he got the first like white label of Tiger Milk, you know, the other copy. I didn't want to give him the one with the cover on it, you know, I was nervous. It's good to question things. I think the narrator's point of view in this song is not my point of view, and but perhaps the point of view of the collective point of view of the kids that I was surrounded with. I say kids, you know, my friends and people in the scene that I was surrounded with. I was certainly the only person who was singing in a church choir and going to church.
Stuart's songs can be like, you know, like I said before, like flights of fancy and like imagination, but like a lot of his everyday life is in there as well, and characters, people you come across. A lot of Sinister songs, you can hear that, you know, just basically being in the church a lot, you can hear it.
It seemed like everything was connected with the church. Even Savannah is an old church, you know, where the studio was. We really use our old churches, you know, when the religion falls away, we get pop music comes in.
But if you are feeling sinister, go up and see a minister. The chances are you'll probably feel better if you stay in place with yourself. Judy wrote the saddest song. She showed it to a boy in school today.
Judy was definitely the last song to be written for the record, and that appears at the end. Judy came along at the last minute when I was out on this walk on a Sunday night and walking into the dusk in springtime along the Clyde walkway for miles into areas that I'd never been in before. I walked right out of the city.
I do kind of remember him coming back in from a walk, so it may have been while I was living at the church hall that he kind of came in one day and was sort of like, oh, I've got the last song for the record. It completed the track listing.
Judy was a teenage rebel. She did it with a boy when she was young. She gave herself to books and learning. She gave herself to being number one. Judy, I don't know you if you're gonna show me everything.
I was just singing about her in the third person, and you know, taking over somebody's character. Might seem quite a bold move, but felt entirely natural you know, to get inside somebody's head.
It's really like one of his fictional characters had achieved his ambition for him, so it has more in common with those where he's still writing from the perspective of a fictional character.
And I said, yeah, another song about school kids, Stuart, and he went, you're either with me or you're not. I remember trying to change it, you know. When the band kicked in, I wanted it to have like a sort of to just turn into the Velvets. It's going to go, you know, like totally like take it somewhere else. And hilariously on the radio session, I go too far because I had a distortion pedal, and it sounds, you know, it's like I was trying too hard. You know, it was before we'd done the actual album version. You can hear it on the session. And I was like, Stuart went, what the fuck was that? What'd you do that for? And when the record came out, some went beating hell out of a guitar and he's mixing. He's like, mixed it right down.
And the song she wrote was Judy and the dream of horses, dream of horses, dream of horses, dream of horses.
Yeah, that was almost like a celebratory song, and it is live as well, especially when it gets into the end section. You stop, and it stops and then it kicks in, and again that was a huge moment in the record and a great way to finish, and I think he probably knew that from, you know, conception of the album. He was like, right, this song has to go at the end and it has to jump out. Again, that's like one of the top 3 favourite songs that fans always ask for sure.
If you're ever feeling blue, then write another song about your dream of horses. Write a song about your dream of horses. Call it Judy and the dream of horses. Call it Judy and the dream of horses. Your dream of horses. Na-na-dum-bop, your dream of horses. Na-na-dum-bop, your dream of horses. La-da-dum-bop, your dream of horses.
By the time we actually got out there and released it, there was just a real feeling of, wow, we did this and we got it out there. And it was just, you know, the very first album that released, and I was, you know, extremely proud of it and just thought, this is an amazing record, and couldn't, you know, really understand why people didn't feel the same way instantly.
Initially, it wasn't the album that that everyone remarked upon, and it didn't get talked about that much. But as years have gone by, it's the album that everyone kind of realises is got a kind of consistency through it of ideas and tunes that fit the best as an entire album. And it's the one, I guess, with the stories and lyrics and tunes that mean the most to people.
All that I wanted was to sing the saddest song. And if you would sing along, I will be happy now.
I remember when Stuart would always say, you know, he wanted it to be like this big romance. And I was thinking about it last night, and I think it totally was. Like, you know, he meant like all of us, and like it really, really was. Like, it was this fantastical romantic thing.
This was a record of us at the time, and this was a record of us trying to make a classic pop record, and I still kind of love it for being the snapshot of the time, because I knew I was so determined that, you know, that these songs should be recorded right then like that.
Oh, get me away from here, I'm dying. Play me a song to set me free. Nobody writes them like they used to, so it may as well be me.
I think it was Stuart coming out of that period where he'd had a really terrible time with the ME. And I think even by the end of If You're Feeling Sinister, that was the point at which he started asking for contributions from the rest of the band. And I think that period was probably over for him then. It was like If You're Feeling Sinister was a culmination of him getting better and getting better through creating and expressing what had been wrong with him, really.
Like I said before, there's a reason that people write songs, the reason people write pop songs, and they write them to comfort themselves, they write them through desire. There's a definite reason. It's not just for fun. The best songs serve a definite purpose to the person who's writing them.
Oh, that wasn't what I meant to say at all. From where I'm sitting, rain falling against the lonely tenement has set my mind to wander into the windows of my lovers. They never know unless I write. This is no declaration, I just thought I'd let you know goodbye. Said the hero in this story, it is mightier than swords. I could kill you, sure, but I could only make you cry with these words. Cry with these words.
I know that I can be doing a set list night after night. We can be in Austria or Brazil, and I'll know that I can stick in a song from Sinister at this point, and I will just disappear back into that time.
Get me away, I'm dying.
As usual, like Stuart's like, he's miles ahead of all of us, you know. I mean, he knew what he was doing. It's about creating a sound and telling a story, you know. And I think Sinister, that's why it's so successful and that's why people love it. It's just, the song is king.
But no, there's too much history, too much biography between us. Me and the Major don't see eye to eye on a number of things. You'll take a guy like me, oh yeah. Me and the Major don't see eye to eye on a number of things. You'll take a guy like me and put him in the army, cause the Queen's own army makes a man of you. He doesn't understand and he doesn't try.